During the 1930s and early 1940s, hundreds of thousands of Jews sought safe havens outside Nazi-occupied territory.
In July 1941, American consulates closed in Nazi-occupied territories. After the U.S. entered the war December 1941, it became almost impossible for refugees to escape to the United States.
Despite the odds, more than 200,000 Jews found refuge in the United States from 1933 to 1945.
Ellis Island served as an immigration station for Jews immigrating to the U.S.
Many Jews immigrating to the U.S. settled in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. The Lower East Side quickly became a recreation of Eastern Europe, with the smells, sounds, tastes, and noises of life. During the 1930s and early 1940s, hundreds of thousands of Jews sought safe havens outside Nazi-occupied territory.
In July 1941, American consulates closed in Nazi-occupied territories. After the U.S. entered the war December 1941, it became almost impossible for refugees to escape to the United States.
Despite the odds, more than 200,000 Jews found refuge in the United States from 1933 to 1945.
Ellis Island served as an immigration station for Jews immigrating to the U.S.
Many Jews immigrating to the U.S. settled in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. The Lower East Side quickly became a recreation of Eastern Europe, with the smells, sounds, tastes, and noises of life in the Old World.
Hasidic communities post-war mostly immigrated to Williamsburg and Borough Park. Non-Hasidic Holocaust survivors largely went to Jewish communities and neighborhoods in Brooklyn or Queens.
A typical tenement building had 5 to 7 stories and occupied nearly all of the lot it was built on. Tenements were usually 25 feet wide and 100 feet long. Many tenements began as single-family dwellings, and many older structures were converted into tenements by adding floors on top or by building more space in rear yard areas.
Personal hygiene became an issue because of lack of running water and garbage that piled up in the streets. It became difficult for those living in tenements to bathe properly or wash their clothing. This triggered the spread of diseases such as cholera, typhoid, smallpox, and tuberculosis.
Jews worked jobs such as mill workers, sweatshop workers, coal miners, and any other job that paid very little. With very little money or supplies, American Jewish immigrants struggled to provide for their families.
Since most Jews had trouble finding jobs during the Great Depression, they migrated to the suburbs. Although most Jews they moved out to the suburbs, and they did not want to give up their Jewish identity. The pressure to become more like Americans was greater than ever before. As long as they lived in the cities, whether or not they were institutionally involved in Jewish life with the synagogue or Zionist organization or even Jewish socialist organization, everywhere they turned, there was someone Jewish. They felt a strong sense of Jewish identity rooted in their neighborhood.
Jewish immigrants were still met with anti-Semitism in the U.S. Some of the Black nationalist Nation of Islam thought Jews were responsible for the exploitation of black labor and bringing drugs and violence into America. Jews were also treated as a scapegoat for Americans not having jobs during the Great Depression.
Jews experienced discrimination immediately following their immigration to the U.S. Some U.S. citizens feared that they were Nazi spies among the Jewish immigrants seeking refuge in the U.S., which further fueled American anti-Semitism.
Anti-Semitism in the U.S. began to lessen upon hearing of the horrors of the Holocaust. Although anti-Semitism is still relevant today in the U.S., Jewish faculty thrive at the nation's top institutions, and the Jewish citizens of the U.S. can practice Judaism freely.